All right, folks, celebration in the Palestinian areas in celebration of the terrorist attack that killed 4 rabbis in Jerusalem today. Joining us now is Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law professor, author, Newsmax contributor, and his book, which we'll put up on the screen, his ebook, Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War Against Hamas. Alan, I do want to talk about Obama's executive order that's pending, but first and foremost, this horrific, bloody, gruesome attack in Jerusalem, and again, just the celebration with Palestinian children getting candy. It's just disgusting.
Mm-hmm. It's just disgusting, and it really shows the difference between Israel and the Palestinian side. The Palestinians cheer, the Palestinians call for revenge, the Palestinians celebrate. I'm not talking about Hamas now, I'm talking about the Palestinian Authority, which creates posters, which names parks after these murderers. On the other hand, Prime Minister Netanyahu goes on television and calls for Israelis not to take revenge, calls for Israelis not to take the law into their own hands. So you can't create any moral equivalence between the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. And the world has to understand that, because when they suggest moral equivalence, what they do is they incentivize Palestinian terrorists to continue to engage in these horrendous acts of terrorism. This is essentially an ISIS attempt at beheading. They come in with axes, meat cleavers. They're trying to kill in the most brutal way, and we have to understand that.
And you know, Alan, if you go to websites like Palestinian Media Watch and you read the translation of what Abbas and his government has been saying over the past couple of weeks in the wake of all this violence, the terror attacks with using cars to kill soldiers and pedestrians, urging them on, glorifying them, calling the parents of these people who do it and are killed subsequently. I mean, how does Obama then keep calling this man Abbas a man of peace?
Well, it's hard to understand that. Abbas speaks out of two sides of his mouth. When he speaks to the Americans, when he speaks to President Obama, he speaks the language of peace. And then when he speaks in Arabic, which Memory.com translates, you catch him. He talks about how these people are heroes and martyrs. He writes letters of condolences to murderers' families, and the message is quite clear. Keep doing it, and you'll be praised, and your children will have parks named after them and ball fields named after them, and they'll have martyr pictures, and candy will be distributed to them, and they'll go to heaven and, be in paradise. It's very hard to fight religious fanatics, and one would have hoped that Abbas would try to resolve the tensions, as Netanyahu has, along with King Abdullah of Jordan. But Abbas has not been part of the solution to this problem. He's been part of the problem. He's been helping to turn this political conflict into a religious conflict. And religious conflicts are much, much harder to solve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then let me just ask you one more thing. If Israel ever did anything like this, if any of the signals from the government ever justified revenge killing or anything, or terror, which Israel doesn't engage in, but you have an entire Palestinian society that, as I just showed when you came on, you couldn't see it, but I described to you that it was the Palestinian children getting candy and singing in the streets, celebrating the death of the rabbis. They teach it in their schools. It's on their television. The whole society, in my opinion, is sick. How come no one talks about that?
Well, can you imagine what would have happened if Israeli soldiers had killed 4 imams at prayer in the Al-Aqsa Mosque? I mean, the entire Islamic world would be at war with Israel. And here you have 4 very distinguished rabbis. I knew one of them. One of them's father was a colleague of mine at Harvard Law School for many years. He grew up in Boston. His mother was my children's history teacher in high school. His grandfather was one of the most eminent Jewish scholars in modern history. He was a man of peace, not a man of politics, and he gets butchered this way, leaving children. And the Palestinians are cheering and giving out candy. And Abbas is giving a lukewarm condemnation, essentially blaming it on Israel by talking about the tensions on the mountains.
Right. Yeah. It is awful. All right, Alan, we'll have you back another time to talk about the pending executive order on amnesty, and I'm sorry for your loss of the rabbi that you knew, and thank you for taking the time. I know it's been a busy day for you.
It has been. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Alan Dershowitz, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. The book, Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War Against Hamas. You have to read this book because there's not enough people out there in the media, willing to say what Alan Dershowitz says and tell the truth. I mean, the Palestinian society is a sick, violent society. I mean, what else could you say? Ooh, did you hear what Steve Malzberg just said? Well, how do you explain it? How do you explain a society that celebrates the murder of 4 rabbis praying in a synagogue by giving children candy? We're coming back, folks. Wyoming Senator John Barrasso.